Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Ralph Rolle, drummer, and you're listening to Jim on Bass.
Hey, it's Ryan from the Jim on Base Show, the podcast that brings you closer to your favorite athletes and entertainers. And I want to give a huge shout out to my friends at Claim to Fame. They have some of the best jackets out there that I love to wear. You can rock them for date night, a casual outing with friends, or even while doing a podcast. They're lightweight, they're durable, and perfect for any setting. My favorites are the dark blue, the olive shade, and if you want to switch things up and go for a lighter color, one of my favorite go-tos is the Pacific blue. So check them out at claimtofame.com for all their different styles. So make sure you click the link so the next time you step out, you'll be feeling good with Claim to Fame. Welcome back to another episode of the Jim on Bass Show. For today's very special guest, we have someone that's played drums since he was 18 years old. He's been the drummer for Chic for the past 18 years. He's collaborated with great artists like Luther Vandross, Bono, Lady Gaga, and has made appearances on shows like Late Night with David Letterman. Please welcome the great Ralph Rolle. Ralph, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Jim. No.
Yeah, you know the secret now. The real name's Ryan.
Right, but you're Jim. No,
The stage name.
that's very cool.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on the show, and I thought it was interesting when I was thinking of questions. You have drum rolls, you have rolls and drum fills, so the last name kind of worked out for you.
Yeah, actually, speaking of stage names, people thought that was a made-up last name.
Mm.
And I told them no. It's on my birth certificate, it's on my driver's license, and my passport. I come from a line of rolls out of a little island called Exuma, where my father's family is
Mm.
from. And if you go to Exuma, it's a beautiful place. But there's a place there called Rollville. And after slavery, people left Rollville and went to Miami. And there's a lot of roles in Miami. There's some professional football players as
Mm.
well. Yeah.
Wow.
But Roll is my name.
Well, I was gonna ask what's going on in your world right now, because I think are you in New York City or?
I'm in New York. I'm in very cold New York. The temperature dropped again last night to under 20. It's like 20 something degrees.
Wow.
So I wasn't happy walking the dogs last night.
And I thought it was interesting too. Those are real glasses, right? It's not just a style thing.
No, these are up here is clear and down here is for reading
Ah.
because what happens when you get older, your eyes uh and I learned this from a ophthalmologist. Everyone gets older, your cornea starts to harden and it changes your vision. So you'll see people in their 40s and older that start to wear glasses. But I found these and they're very cool. So I had lenses put in.
I like it because I got to meet Flavor Flav a little over a year ago, and
Ah,
yeah, it was nice to see his clock necklace. It actually ticks, so it's nice to see the glasses are real. You know, the props aren't
no, no,
always
no,
just
they're
props.
real. Like I can read, like I have to do that whole thing like this, but they're real.
Nice. Well, I found out about you by going to some Chic shows in the past, and
Hmm.
curious, how did you get in contact with Nile Rodgers?
Um, well, to get the gig, it was actually being done at the time by a drummer named Nathaniel Townsley. Really, really, really good drummer. Um, he, Younger guy. And he was doing the gig, and he asked me could I do it because at the time he was playing with Joe Zawinul, and he had a gig on the same day as Nile Rodgers gig. So I said yes, of course, because I really loved chic music growing up, and I knew Tony Thompson's style, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be an easy sub gig, but I just want to nail it. So I went in, and they sent me Chic Live in Montrose tape to listen to.
Mm.
And what I normally do when I'm rehearsing for a gig that has already standing music, it's not something new or original, I will listen to if there's a recording of what they gave me, and then I will listen to the original.
Mm.
And I try to find groove-wise somewhere comfortable in there, mostly leaning towards Tony and his original grooves. But the tapes that I got, it was Omar Hakeem.
Mm.
So I mean, I don't know if you know this guy named Omar. I'm kidding. Everyone knows Omar. So I had to listen to him, and it was great. And all of the transitions and stuff that he did, it was perfect. And Nile asked me to come in for. He wanted to hear me, and it was just me and the bass player and him. And at the time, the bass player was Barry Campbell,
Mm.
um, out of Queens. Used to play with Lenny White. So anyway, we go in. Niall comes in. He's actually whistling as he comes to the door. I realize Niall, after all these years, is a whistler. So he comes in, hey, how you doing? Sets up his guitar and he goes, let's take it from the medley. And I flip my pages and I get myself ready and we start. We get halfway through the medley and he goes, okay, and starts packing up. And I immediately went into a panic. I'm like, what happened? Like, did I do something wrong? So in my master classes, I teach ask questions if you don't know, or if you need to figure something out and it's kind of out of your world, ask questions. So I said, Niall, is everything okay? And he said, yeah, you sound great. I'll see you in Switzerland. And that was it. So the next
Awesome.
time I saw Niall, I was in Gstaad, Switzerland, and I did the gig, played it down, and he had his lead singer come to me to ask if I wanted the gig. He liked what I did. He said, you really nailed the gig. And I said, well, Nathaniel Townsley called me. And the drummer world is a small world, and I'm not about cutting somebody's throat. She said, no, the situation is that now I was looking for the right fit. He had been through a few different drummers, but after Omar, he was looking for something specific. He says, and he really likes what you're doing. And if you want the gig, I said, yeah, of course I do. And that's how I ended up in Chic 18 years ago.
The
So
longest
now,
tenured drummer, right?
yes, yes, I've played in that seat longer than anyone. And so, that one of the best compliments I've ever gotten from now was in an airport. Early in the morning, we were the first people in the airport in somewhere in Europe, and the band is in line, the crew is in line, management is in line. And he says, you know what, I gotta say something. Uh, Ralph is probably the best drummer I've ever had.
Wow.
And I really appreciate what he's doing. And I froze, I mean, even though I work for the guy, I'm still a fan, and I'm always trying to do my best because I don't want him to feel any less of me. So I've never forgotten that. That was a very emotional moment for me that with all of the drummers that he's worked with in his life, that he decided that he wanted to let his band know. So
Wow.
my first thought was, well, at least I have a gig for the rest of my life. Yeah.
That made me think too when you talk about Switzerland, and I've noticed Chic does a lot of touring in general, but especially like in Europe, it seems like. So, does Nile have a place out there, or is that just where a really strong following is? Or
Yeah, he has a chalet. I'm kidding. He doesn't have a chalet. The reason why we work so much in Europe is because of it. It all boils down to the appreciation of music in Europe.
hmm
America has become somewhat of a disposable society when it comes to building legends, if you will. 40 years ago was different because the people that we saw then, we're still seeing now,
yeah,
and people respect that. But over time, music in America became more and more disposable because it was moving so fast. Trends were changing so quickly. And also, formatted radio was trying to do something to keep the audience in. This is new from so and so. And then 3 years later, this is old school. It's like, old school 3 years later? What are you kidding me? But in Europe, there's an ongoing appreciation for music. And that's why we're so popular. It's very common for us to look out into the audience and see kids singing the lyrics to 50-year-old songs, which means that their parents and their grandparents had been playing those songs in the house. So it just, to answer the question specifically, it boils down to the long-term appreciation and admiration for the arts in other countries.
yeah, no, that makes sense. I've always thought Europe seems to have a lot better taste too, and I got to see you guys a couple summers ago in Madrid, and it
Yeah.
was an awesome summer night, and you guys did the whole show, and then it turned into like a DJ crowd after. Everyone wanted to keep dancing, so.
Right, right. And it's just that connection that I love about going to Europe, going to Asia,
Mm,
is this appreciation for music that's very deep. And I'm not saying that America doesn't have it. That's not what I'm saying. But if you look at the landscape of the legends, it's getting smaller
mm,
because the artists that are coming out now, many of them, the record companies are just getting them because their social media
yeah.
popularity, and then 2 years later they got someone else. So
Mm.
the legend status is leaving. Nile is a bona fide legend. Chic is a bona fide legendary group, and I think that's the whole thing as far as Europe and America.
Well, it must be fun being in a band like Chic too, where you can play your regular tour shows, and I know you probably get a lot of private shows too, where you maybe get to meet some of your favorite entertainment stars, right?
We do a lot of private shows. The one thing I love about Chic as an organization is I grew up in bands. I mean, one of the first bands that I played in was actually my mentor, a guy named Ricky Williams, and he taught me how to be a band member. He taught me about playing together and understanding the position of a drummer because he was a drummer. He's also a keyboard player and a bass player, and he's blind, and
Wow.
he's ridiculous. And then my second band that even honed in more, I'm a little older now, in my early teens, early 20s, late teens, early 20s, was a group called Indigo.
Mm, yeah.
And Indigo was a local group that we played just top 40 stuff. And these guys were seasoned. I was the young kid in the band, and I listened to Vincent Henry, saxophone player, guitar player. I talk to him all the time. Larry Robinson. Uh, they were just they just mentored me in how to what it, what is the definition of a band? What is symbolic about being in that drum chair and how important it is to hold all these elements together that I've taken with me, all these years, and it's worked. It's worked in my favor.
Well, it made me wonder too, like when I saw you guys in Oakland, probably like 6 or 7 years ago, and you were touring with Earth, Wind, and Fire. And
Mm.
I know your one of your singers, Falami, who's from the Bay Area, and she let me come backstage, and I ran into the comedian Craig Robinson. I think he's like a big super fan, right?
He is. I've seen Craig show up. I just saw Craig just recently. It was this big festival in California. Actually, it was the
Mm.
last time that I saw Tito Jackson.
Oh, okay.
He had passed away very soon after that. But I look out in the audience and Craig is standing there. Actually, Craig's brother subbed in our band. He's also a keyboard player.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but Craig he's a super fan. He's a really cool guy. Nice guy. What's up, Craig?
Yeah, and as you know, he's a great musician himself. I've seen him do
Oh, he
stand
is.
up, and he'll
Yeah.
bust out the piano and do some good cover songs.
Yes, yes, he's very good.
Well, my favorite Chic song to hear or see live, I was shocked you guys play it, was in Madrid. You played Soup for One. I feel that's a pretty good
Uh,
deep cut. So,
yeah,
what's your
it's
favorite Chic song?
I Want Your Love.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
In our set, I Want Your Love, and here's why. It is it's the third song in the set, and it's right before we do a break where Now introduces himself and talks about some things. But Kimberly Davis blows the entire
Mm.
roof off of every single. I don't think there's an arena or a stage that still has a roof because of Kimberly Davis. She is she just brings it all in, and I've said it many times because of Kimberly Davis, we have to play up to her greatness. Kimberly is a different person style-wise from the original singers, but it's a new style for Chic that has elevated who we are and how people see us. So when we're out with groups like Earth, Wind, and Fire, the reason why they like us to open up is because, we get the audience ready for the main act. We've done it with Duran Duran and
Mm.
Cher and other folks, but I that's my favorite song, I Want Your Love.
Nice. One of my favorite songs to see live too is "Let's Dance," where you're singing it, right? So,
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, so I don't know if there's anybody in the world of a certain age that wasn't a Bowie fan. Bowie actually transcended many genres and audiences. He was loved in the black community. He did some songs like "Let's Dance" and "Fame." That you would go to a party and you would all of a sudden hear "Fame." And many people didn't know it was Bowie. It was just like such a great song. But I found out about Niles' involvement with "Let's Dance" when I was in Japan reading his book. And I was on the train and got to the chapter about how he met Bowie. He was hanging out with Billy Idol, and Billy Idol shook Bowie's hand and threw up and went over in the corner, fell asleep, and him and Niall and David sat down for hours and was talking, and that's how the relationship happened. And I called Niall. I got off the train and I called him, and I remember the conversation very well. He said he calls me Rizaf, and I call him Niz. He's a Bronx dude, so so I said Niz. He said, "What's up, Rizaf?" I said, "I had no clue that you did Let's Dance with Bowie." And he has this really slow laugh. Ah, 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 ah. He just laughs. So I said, "We got to put it in the set. We have to put the song in the set." And he says to me, "Well, if you learn it, then we'll do it." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. That wasn't what I meant. I didn't mean I want to sing Let's Dance. I said we should just put it in the set." He said, "Yo, you will kill it. Just learn it and we'll put it in the set." I said, "Okay." So learned it. The hard part was getting the groove right and singing, and then
Mm,
doing the whole hype in the beginning of the song before we actually start the song. But that's how Let's Dance ended up getting in the show, was that conversation, and it's now in a very sweet spot right before Good Times. So
mm.
again, I appreciate the fact that he appreciated my talent enough to want to do the song.
Well, it reminded me too because I saw Dave Matthews about a year ago, and I don't know if you guys know this, but they're doing a good cover of that right now too. So
Yeah, I heard.
yeah, it's pretty good,
I
funky.
have a feeling that they might have seen us do it and went, hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it made me wonder. Niles seems like a laid back guy. Like, does he kind of let you put your own touch on certain drum parts, or how does that go?
So Niall is when it comes to the band, he knows what he wants. And basically he'll allow you to do what's going on inside the music, but if he has something specific, he'll say it. Okay, let's do this here, let's do that there. And his ears are impeccable. He hears everything all the time. But the allowance in the band, he's not a taskmaster. He's not on your neck like for every single thing you do, but you got to respect that.
Mm,
You don't just take that and go, well, I think I'm gonna just lose my mind and do a fill in the middle of the verse,
yeah.
you know. But he keeps the band because of everyone's production understanding and the fact that everyone has their own projects that they've done. So we're all listening from a not only a player standpoint, but also from a producer standpoint to try to bring the best to that chair as
Mm,
possible. Jerry and Jerry Barnes, bass player, are constantly looking at how we can make anything, any song, any little tiny piece better, and be tight as we possibly can because we know we have to be that foundation. I'm on the bottom, he's right above me, and then there's Nile, and then
mm.
the band, and we got to keep it tight. So he's not Nile is not on your neck. He's a good dude.
Well, it also made me wonder when it comes to drumming style. I grew up playing the drums too, and
Mhm.
I remember you had said like when you close your eyes and listen, it kind of heightens your hearing. So it kind of reminded me of my drum teacher Brent. He had always said, if you can hum it, you can play it.
Right.
Do you believe in that as a drummer? Or?
Um, a lot of my practicing has been just like mouthing parts, trying different things and seeing how it fits because I'm very rarely around my kit as much as, I'd love to be, but I don't. So yeah, humming and learning. But the whole thing about closing your eyes came from Ricky Williams,
Mm,
the person that I mentioned. Ricky would sit down behind a drum set and out of all the drummers in my neighborhood, he just made the groove. So I would, he's a big dude. I think he's like 6'5", and I'm this little kid. So, and I was the only one he would let come to his house to watch him practice. So I'm standing behind him looking over his shoulder, and I would put my hands on his shoulders. I wanted to feel the vibe, and I would
Mm.
close my eyes because now I'm trying to mimic him. And I realized that when you close your eyes, the distraction of what you're visually seeing goes away, and your ears immediately, the other sense just picks up, and it picks up on things that you might not have been paying attention to before. And Ricky being blind, he has to
Mm.
rely on his ears when he's moving around doing certain things. So I remember one time we were in the store, we went down to the bodega, and he dropped a dime. I never forget this. And he said, "Could you grab that dime for me?" And everybody in the store went like, but I mean, if you drop now, if you did it, if you dropped a nickel or a penny, you can definitely hear the difference in it. And those little sensibilities is what I learned from him to apply. So humming a song and learning how to play a groove that way, or beatboxing a groove and then practicing to them are very, very important.
Mm.
Closing your eyes is very important.
Well, do you feel like you were ever like pretty destined to play the drums? Because I heard that your first set was you worked at a music store, right? And no one came to pick up their order.
Yeah, what the first introduction to a drum set, I was about 8 years old, and I came home from playing, and there was a drum set in the bedroom. And it was, we had a bedroom that was like 8 feet by 10 feet, two beds. And right in the middle was the drum kit. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So I asked my brother Howie, could I play? And he said, yeah, you could play. Just leave the drums where they are. Don't be switching them around because you're left-handed. So I would play with the ride way over here, and I couldn't sit on the stool. I had to lean on it kind of because I was so little, and that's how I started then. When I got introduced to my drum set, I was so immersed in wanting to be a drummer at that point that any place there were drums, I would go. My friend Artie had drums, I'd be at his house. My cousin in Queens, I would go to his house. Ricky, I would go to his house. Anywhere drums was, and the reason why is my brother got rid of the drums, and I didn't know why. So when I asked my mother, she said, "Don't go talk to your brother. You ask him." So in the next building, I lived in 1595, 1609 was right in front, his girlfriend, Michelle, that he was crazy about. He was there at her house. So I go and I ask him, I say, hey man, what's going on? The drums aren't there. And he says, well, first of all, mommy put me out. Michelle is pregnant, and I needed money. And I gotta, I gotta get an apartment and you're gonna be an uncle and all this stuff. And I just looked at him and went, what happened to the drums? I didn't care about it, uncle and nothing. Um, but years later, they've been together over 50 years. They have
Wow.
four daughters and a bunch of grandkids, and he gave up drums to become an engineer. But the bug had already bitten me, and I started volunteering wherever was important. The library had the books to learn about music, so I volunteered to just put books back in the library in my neighborhood.
Wow.
The music store had the drums, so I would go there and sweep up and go buy coffee, and there was a Ludwig Wieselite drum set in the window. And I asked the owner, I said, whose drum set is this? He said, well, someone ordered it. They never picked up. It's been there forever. He says, I'll sell it to you at cost. I don't know what that cost means. I'm a kid. I'm like, okay. So he tells me the price, and I go back and I tell my mother, and I'm excited. And she says, well, I can't afford to buy the drums. But if you can raise the money, I'll buy the cymbals. And I said, okay. I knew exactly what to do. Kids would go to the local grocery store on the weekends and pack bags. You had to get there early to get your slot because there was only but a certain amount of cashiers that you could pack bags for. So the earlier the better. So I'm up at like 6 in the morning. I didn't even watch my cartoons. I would just go pack bags. and come home with a few dollars. I raised enough to actually buy the drum set. And my
Wow.
mother did exactly what she said. She bought me the cymbals. Now, this is through 16, 17, and I'm now graduated from high school. And I'm home and I'm practicing, and my mother wants me to go to college. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm going to go to college. And as I'm playing, a guy hears me on the first floor, a guy named, we called him Puggy. His name's Wade Taylor. He's a drummer and a singer. And he's in the group Musique. Now I'm 18, about to turn 19, and he calls me out the window and says, "Man, you sounded good up there in them drums. You want to come to this audition?" And I was like, "Yeah, but you got to ask my mother because she ain't gonna let me go nowhere." So he asked her. I go to the audition. I get the gig, and that's how the whole drum set
Mm.
starting thing happened. It just was in me.
Wow, that's a great story. And then you had to get used to packing them up, huh? Going from place to place.
Drummers are first in and last out all the time, man. I mean, when I got to the point where I didn't have to do that, I felt like the king of New York, man. That's a good feeling. Every drummer knows when if and when you get to that point that you have someone that's carting and setting up, it's a good feeling. Um, my drum tech is a guy named Martin Oldham. He's from the UK. Martin is he's the Rolls Royce of drum techs. This guy he's not just a drum tech. And after every single show, I go over and I hug him after every show because I'm so appreciative of what he brings as
Mm.
far as the settings, the tunings, everything. It's perfect every time. I just have to go out and sit down, and I just love this guy. He's really great.
Well, you're used to being the main event, being the show. People come to see you, but who was your first concert that you went to?
Oh, early on, I went to a few. My mother would make my sister Yvonne, who's a few years older than me, she would make Yvonne take me with her and her girlfriend to the Apollo. And I thought it was I thought it was just take your little brother, but it was to keep her out of trouble. So every few weeks we were at the Apollo, and on Saturdays they always did two shows. So
Mm.
you'd come in, you'd get some cartoons, you get a movie, and then you get a show. And then in the middle there would be a break, and you have cartoons, movie, and then another show. So this one particular show, I'm walking down 125th Street, excuse me, 125th Street with my sister and Wanda, who I had a crush on. And they're naming the people on the bill. It was like Joe Simon, somebody else, and the Jackson Five.
Mm.
And I never heard of the Jackson Five. And in my head, I don't know why I thought the Jackson Five was a gospel group. So I'm going, why is there a gospel group with like Joe Simon? It's like he's a soul singer, and But when we went in, we sat down in the orchestra section on stage left, which is the right side of the audience. And we were maybe about 12 rows back, and they introduced this group called the Jackson Five. They come out on stage, and I'm transformed at that moment into like, oh my, what is happening? This kid is my age, and he's tearing. Michael Jackson and his brothers were tearing the stage apart. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm like, I want to be on stage. I want to do that. I want to be on stage. Like, he's proving to me that a kid of my age can actually do those kind of things. The other great show I saw was Little Stevie Wonder at the Brooklyn Fox. When my aunt took us all there, my her kids, me. I think my mother was there, but I saw Little Stevie Wonder do Fingertips live.
Mm. Wow.
So those are the two standout shows when I was coming up.
That's pretty surreal because to have those moments at the Apollo Theater with the Jackson Five, because then you went on to become the house drummer, right, for like over 20 years.
Yeah, the first time I stood on stage knowing that I was going to play on that stage, I got emotional because I knew how many incredible acts had been there, had walked that stage, had been in those dressing rooms, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually working here.
Yeah.
You know, and I stayed at the Apollo for many, I would say nearly 20 years I stayed
Wow.
at the Apollo working. It was a great gig to have. Yeah.
Well, one thing I really wanted to ask you about, the question I couldn't forget to ask, was you played with Luther Vandross, right? And I know you said that was like a day you would never forget, so I have to ask about that.
I had the pleasure of I used to work with a guy named Ray Chu. And Ray Chu is now the musical director for Dancing with the Stars.
Mm.
And when I got in the band, we were just a Wednesday night house band for the Apollo. But we would get called to do other gigs and back other people. And as time went on, the four-piece band got recognized as like this really hot four-piece section. Was it four or five? No, it was five-piece. It was two keyboards, four. Anyway, we were killing. And then at certain times we were bringing a guitar player. It was either Mike Cyril, Mike Campbell, or Artie White would come
Oh
in.
wow.
So anyway, we're now doing different shows. We're doing different things. We did something with Rakim. I'll send you the video. Someone just sent it to me.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Biscuit. I appreciate you, bro, for sending me that. But there was a tribute to Dionne Warwick, and we were the house band for that event, and we got a chance to play along with Luther. Now, I had never worked with Luther, but many of my friends were playing with Luther, like my friend um, at the time, Ivan Hampton on drums, Lisa Fisher on vocals, Skip Anderson on keys, Cindy Mizell on vocals, Paulette McWilliams on vocals. So these were all my friends, and I envied them because they were playing with Luther Vandross.
Yeah.
So finally, I get my chance to play with Luther, and I'm looking at him like, God, I love this man so much because he's so ridiculous. We we rehearse, and then afterward, I take a photo with him, and I
Mm.
still have that photo, but it's on an old phone that I can't start. But to meet Luther and to get a chance to play with him that time was incredible. And then later on, there was a tribute album. I got a chance to perform with Aretha Franklin on that.
Wow.
Yeah, she redid "A House Is Not a Home," so
Mm.
I played on that. He was such an amazing talent, going way too soon, man. That guy,
Yeah.
he closed the book on incredible singers, you know.
I know a big documentary just came out on him that I got to watch. I heard
On
it's really good.
CNN, yeah,
Yeah.
I missed it every time I was out, and then I actually got a subscription for HBO Max because it was supposed to come on there, but they didn't tell you that it's not going to be on for a while.
Uh,
So so I haven't seen it yet. And I just looked for it last night, and I haven't seen it. And I understand from everyone it's amazing.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. So I can't wait to watch that. And
Yeah.
another person we spoke on the phone a few months ago, and you had mentioned you said Google Bob Power, and curious what your relationship was like because I know he's been with bands like Tribe Called Quest, The Roots, and he's like a big producer, right? And professor too.
Yeah, yeah. Bob and I became friends during my I was A&R manager for Jive
Mm,
Records. And two stories down was Battery Studios where a lot of people used to record. And I somehow met Bob. I cannot remember how we actually met. He's probably going to be very pissed that I can't remember, but I know that he called me and I did a loop uh, a loop recordings for Tribe Called Quest. I don't know if they
mm,
ever used them, but that kind of forged a very close friendship between me and Bob, and for decades now. Bob Power is really good at what he does. I mean, all of that Tribe Called Quest stuff, he mixed all of that,
mm,
made, musical suggestions and contributions, and he's got a head full of like hair, white dude that no one would ever think had an influence on Tribe Called
mm,
Quest, but he's had an influence on Erica Badu and D'Angelo and India Irie, a lot of the soul acts. He's pretty pure. And then when he started working at the Clive Davis Institute in
mm.
NYU, I went down there a few times to some of his classes, and he's just an amazing guy. He's the reason why I wanted you to look him up. And, Bob is still working and doing his thing, and he's done a lot. I love Bob.
Well, you're such a it almost seems like you're a musical entrepreneur because I know you've done producing. Like, have you ever really been in between work? It seems like you always find a way to probably just keep things moving.
Um, I I've realized that I've probably come become afraid to stop.
Mm.
So I'm constantly doing many different things. Every single night, my wife says goodnight because she knows I'm going to be in the living room until 3 in the morning working on something. I'm just a workaholic. And that started early as a drummer, and I realized what it was. It was the fear of failure. It was an absolute fear of failing. I didn't want to be a failure at anything, so I would put in triple time on everything I did, just because I was scared to fail. So if I have an idea to do something, I always put 100% in because I don't want to fail at anything. So when people ask me why you do this and what you're doing that and you did that and you do this, it's just when the passion hits me, it's just something in me that I just got to see it through, you know?
Does that kind of tie into your master class, like how to get and keep a gig?
That's why my master classes started because of the master classes that I was seeing that were not master classes. They were performances. Now, when people come out, obviously there's certain drummers that they want to see, speaking of drummers specifically, and they want to also get information. It's like, what can I take away from this other than some really good drumming? Like two things happen when you go to a master class that I was seeing. You get a really good show and you either come away inspired or you come away scared to death not to ever touch the drums again. Because when you get that, that's why I talk about in my master classes the word can't, is because people will start to look at that not in a positive way, but in a negative way. I can't, I'll never be able to do that. What if I tried and failed in front of it? Those are the kind of things that made me frustrated. And what did you learn? Oh man, the show was, man, he played his ass off. And I'm like, but what'd you learn? Man, he played his ass off, man. And I'm like, a master class should be a culmination of not only a great performance, but information. So to me, the performance is the commercial, and what you say is the show, not the other way around. And that's what got me into doing master classes because I wanted people to go away feeling motivated at any level what is attainable, you know. And it's been working, a lot of my classes. So when on my off time, other than my other businesses, I'm trying to teach. I just we're on our way to Japan, so more than likely I'll go over a little early and do some stuff over there.
Mm, very
Yeah.
nice. Well, we got to start wrapping it up, but I know that your wife's really busy
You got
too,
to
right?
wrap it up. I'm sorry. You said rap. I'm sorry. I'm from the
Yeah.
Bronx, man. From the Bronx.
It sounded good. Well, I know
No, it didn't.
your wife runs the cookie company, right? Soul Snacks Cookie Company, and I know that
Yeah,
stems from like your grandmother's recipe. And do you ever bring those cookies out on the road with you, or are they too
I do.
dangerous?
At times, one of my pieces of luggage is all cookies, and then I have to carry an empty piece of luggage home. But yeah, she runs it. Her legal name is Pit Bull. I'm kidding. Um, my she is she's a very strong woman. She comes from a family who built their own business in Japan, and she was involved in that, being one of two daughters. They have a hairdressing business, and they've started with one store, then they had many.
Wow.
And her parents are just they were her father passed away in a very strange accident, but mom and him were very kind to me. But I see where her work ethic comes from. So when we got together and we had a baby, and I I told her about the cookie company. I had actually taken her to where I was baking. But when we had the baby, there was no time. I'm out. We had to stop for a little while. And when our daughter was about 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old, she said, maybe this is a good time to start the company back.
Mm.
And we started in the apartment, one rack at a time, one store. First client was Melba Wilson, who started me in the very beginning of the cookies. From two stores. Second one was Dougie Fresh. He had a restaurant. And then it started to snowball from there. And then we got our own factory. And then we got invited to be in Walmart and Kroger.
Mm.
So anybody out there who is an entrepreneur who's watching this, please understand, just stay out of your own way and believe in your ideas, no matter what anyone has to say. If it's part of your passion, passion has no expiration date. So just be clear on that. So it will work. You just got to put in the time.
Well, it makes sense too. I know one of the things you've said too is how when a movie of your life goes, you don't want to, have any regrets or wish you did something or didn't do something. So you're definitely
Right.
living proof of that. You're taking a big
Yeah.
swing.
Yeah. Well, next week I start my sumo wrestling classes.
Oh wow,
No, I'm
really?
kidding.
Okay, you got me for a second. I'm too gullible.
Imagine me going.
Yeah.
No, I have some other things that are coming out. One is going to launch probably in about 2 or 3 weeks. It's something for our writers out there, and there are hundreds of thousands of writers that don't get recognized. So
Mm.
I came up with something. I've passed it by a bunch of experts and a bunch of attorneys, and the MVP, which is called the minimal viable product, is going to launch probably in
Awesome.
a couple of weeks.
Okay. Well,
I'm
keep my
excited
eyes out.
about it.
Yeah, I'll
I'll
put
tell you.
some.
I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you about it. And I think you'll be like, wow. So as soon as we stop recording, I'll tell you.
Okay. Awesome. And then I got to ask this: is there any other upcoming music projects or upcoming tour dates people can keep an eye out for? Or...
Well, Chic is about to head out in April. We start
Mm,
touring. The dates are starting to come in. First stop is Montego Bay, and the second stop is Japan.
nice.
We'll be
Okay.
in Japan on the 16th of April, and then we have shows in Europe and potential some other tour. Actually, the shows in Japan are with Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Mm, nice.
So it's going to be exciting.
Awesome. Well, Ralph, I gotta say, it's been really cool to connect with you. Falami gave me those passes a few years back, and I got to walk on stage and like dance with some fans on the stage. I remember walking by you, seeing your set, and little did I know these years later I'd have you on. I'd even do a podcast, let alone have you on. So it's
Well,
a
we'll
cool.
stay in touch so I can get you back out there again, Jim.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Well, Ralph, thanks for coming on, and I'll see you down the line.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me.